Glad to be having you all with us today. My name is Sandile Hlope. I'm a partner at EY and the Africa Region Leader for Government and Infrastructure. With me on the panel today is Minister Gwede Mantashe, the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy. Welcome, Minister. Dr. Pat Makhesha, the Executive Chairperson of Ivanplats. Welcome, Patricia. Natasha, Viljoen, the CEO of Anglo American Platinum. Welcome, Natasha. Roger Baxter, the CEO of Minerals Council South Africa. Welcome, Roger.
Sandile.
And then Fortune Mojapelo, the CEO of Bushveld Minerals. Welcome, Fortune.
Thank you, Sandile.
Thank you, panelists, for joining us today. And to the audience, today our panel wants to focus on discussing opportunities provided by the mining sector for investment prospects and outlooks. Our discussion over the sort of next 45 minutes will focus on key areas of opportunities within the sectors. We'll discuss some success stories, policy matters, key stats, and what could be done differently. Our core focus of discussion will be around exploration, ESG, and energy transition. And at the end, we will give 10 minutes to take a couple of questions from the audience in 10 minutes. So please do post your questions in the chat. And then to kick us off, I'll invite each of the panel members, starting with the Minister, just to give us a quick 3-minute overview into one or two insights on mining opportunities in the South Africa sector before we dive into some of the key topics we've outlined. Minister?
Thank you very much, Sandile. We're hosting this conference under the conditions of COVID-19, very difficult. One of the first opportunities presented to us was presented by COVID-19 itself, because COVID-19 forced us to work together. And we discovered painfully that when we work together, we can do better. That's why mining is one of the few sectors that are beginning to show signs of recovery. The third quarter was much better than the first 2 quarters of the year. And that is a product of working together and nudging each other to do what we should do. I want to thank the industry and all role players in the industry for that. That is the first opportunity. The first opportunity is to cooperate and work together. The second one is we have identified exploration as the lifeblood of the mining industry, because exploration helps us discover where minerals are and be able to expand the mining industry. There is cooperation between various players in that area. Is the department, is the Council for Geoscience, is the industry captain. They're all hard at work to draft an exploration strategy so that we can increase attraction of investment in exploration, increase from 1% to about 5%. The potential is there. With provinces that are highly underexplored, like your Northern Cape, a lot of minerals there are discovered by accident because we need to intensify our exploration. The third area that presents opportunities is a revival and development of artisanal and small-scale mining, because that area, we're behind the continent in that area as a country. If we invest in that area, we are going to fuse in resources that are huge enough to make a difference in the industry. Therefore, small-scale miners should be treated should not be treated the same as the large-scale miners. Rules must be simpler and easy for them to make the contribution, but avoid illicit trading of our precious metals. With energy, working together, we are hard at work at ensuring that the security of energy supply, and that will ensure that we are enabled to work together. Self-generation for use, own use, is important for mining As we move forward, we must work together to ensure that it becomes a reality. Thank you very much. I want to applaud the investor at this conference to come forward and partner with us, and we build and grow mineral energy complex. It has a lot of potential. We have overcome the old theory that mining in South Africa is gold mining. We are diverse. Even the minerals for the future are plenty in South Africa. We must do exploration, discover them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for that good opening speech. And I think it's a good segue, because if you really focus on mining and minerals exploration, it does bring significant economic opportunities for the country, such as jobs in the mines, which exploration companies focus to expand on, including supply chain and expansion of that. So maybe, Roger, if you were to follow on from the Minister's opening speech, what are some of the key insights you would like to share from the Council's perspective on opportunities in mining? Thanks, Roger. Roger, I think you're on mute, Roger.
But right up front, the critical thing is that the industry and government have worked very hard together, specifically on saving lives and saving livelihoods. The whole COVID-19 experience is one which has really demonstrated the willingness of the partners to work together and to manage the situation. We've currently got 82% of our workforce back at work at the moment. So that's 367,000 people. Our production has recovered to about 2% lower than pre-crisis levels, so we're almost back to pre-crisis levels. And I think the cooperation that's taken place in developing the standard operating procedures and taking a risk-based approach, both mitigating and preventative measures to stop the spread of COVID-19, whilst in particular allowing the sector to get back to work, has been a real demonstration of the engagement processes. And I think, so just moving on quickly on to the second point that I wanted to make, which is that COVID-19 has also acted as a really important catalyst. As much as we've got some brilliant catalysts in the room like platinum, you know, the one catalyst that COVID has created is this critical need to work together with government. So I think there's a couple of points that come out of that. I think there is a greater shared vision already emerging between government and ourselves. There's a view that we can take mining back to above 10% of GDP. The Minister talked about 5% global exploration spend. That would basically mean increasing investment in exploration in South Africa by 5 times over the next 5 years. We think a 3 to 5 times level is possible, but lots of work being done in that particular area. And we certainly have the view South Africa has huge geological potential, and not only in terms of what could happen on the exploration side, in terms of unlocking the significant venture capital funded exploration sector and the majors funding exploration, and then obviously having the whole area around junior and emerging miners, which is an area in South Africa which is relatively undeveloped compared to many of our other competing countries and colleagues. On the infrastructure side, some big opportunities exist despite the fact that we have a couple of big constraints. Electricity, there has been a lot of discussion on how we unlock opportunities on the electricity side, including on self-generation. The industry is engaging also with Transnet on how we also open up opportunities and deal with issues collaboratively. So, for example, getting more chrome onto rail away from road, which is not any more cost effective for the industry, but obviously that'll generate extra revenues for Transnet at the same time, kind of like win-win situations. On the regulatory certainty side, government have committed to reducing licensing times by half. That's both on environmental exploration, mining areas, and that's an interesting and exciting area that we think will emerge and develop. There's a lot of work being done, obviously, on how we continue to modernize the sector. I'm sure Natasha will talk about that in a second, when we're dealing with the hydrogen economy and the links of the hydrogen economy and the potential for green energy in the sector and how South Africa could play a leading role in this. But I won't preempt her bit. That's career limiting on my side. And I think the whole modernization suite, in collaboration with government, we are working through the Mandela Mining Precinct to drive innovation in the sector. As business, we still think there are a couple of key areas around structural reforms that do need to take place. I'm not throwing any curveballs at the minister here. We know that a bit more private participation in areas like ports, so that they can respond, like, for example, the Richards Bay Coal Terminal, which is one of the most cost-effective deepwater export terminals in the world. If we could have that in a couple of the other ports, that would really help make a difference from our export capacity perspective. So that's been an ongoing debate with government. But welcome to all of you. We appreciate the opportunity to engage. We think that the South African mining sector has significant opportunities, and we can realize those opportunities through greater collaboration, and that's certainly been emerging out of this COVID-19 crisis and as we move into this new normal. Thank you. Sandile, back to you.
Thanks, Roger, and thanks for those initial comments. And I think it's actually quite a good segue, because I think in 2019, environmental, social, and governance, ESG as it's commonly known, was a big buzzword. But its main thrust was more on the environmental pillar during that period. With the spread of the coronavirus and the impact on societies across the world, what appears to have been happened in ESG is a refocus to then look at the three pillars holistically, pointing to a much more holistic approach around ESG. So, Patricia, can you give us a sense in terms of how is the mining sector driving sustainability when it comes to ESG, taking into account the coronavirus pandemic?
Thank you, Sandile, and good afternoon to all the other participants on the line. I think it's actually good news because before the investors used to look at the investment and say, oh, Ivanplats has a good ore body, we are investing there. But the decisions have changed now. We are looking at environmental compliance, we are looking at the social imperatives, and we are looking at the governance structure as it is. Before we introduced the whole concept of ESG in the sector, we had SLP that was there already, and a lot of mining houses were compliant. But the manner in which it was done, communities always felt it was something that was imposed on them. They didn't have the voice to say, this is what we want. But as the minister alluded and Roger alluded to the point that the stakeholders have come together and we are starting to talk and communicate. Gone are the days where you'll just say, this is what we think the people need. But the host communities comes with their own request to say, we do believe that this is what can be done. In terms of lessons learned, to make an example, you might find that you find the girl child not going to school. And when you try to establish what are the issues, is it the question of there are no schools, or what are the underlying factors for girls not going to school, particularly in the rural areas? And then when we started the ESG initiative, we had to go deeper and dig deeper and find out what might be the reason. And you find that the girl's child had to travel a long distance to go and fetch water. The issue was not the infrastructure in terms of the school, but the issue was accessibility to clean water. So ESG is really unpacking the societal norms that a lot of businesses were not aware of in terms of the impact. We had solutions, and sometimes the solutions were not what the communities wanted. I'll make an example of the technology, taking the people in the village to the world and taking the world to the village in terms of making sure that they have access to technology. We have introduced what we call Maru Amokopani. In the Mokopani villages, anybody can access internet for free, because we do believe from a social labor point of view, it's not just about issues that are challenging in the household, but it's issues that are challenging in terms of communities broadly. So technology is one of the enablers that the mining sector has actually played part in terms of Limpopo Connect and all other initiatives. And when it comes to an issue of governance, governance is not just about at the board level, is that internally with your own employees to create a conducive environment so that your employees can flourish. They can know that they're bringing their hearts, mind, and soul to this working environment that is challenging. And that includes diversity. It includes the inclusion of different people, people with disability, women. The girl child must equally be empowered as the boy child is. And then we move to the next phase called internal business processes, where everybody talks to each other. There's no isolation. If Natasha next door has a project that we feel as Ivanplats we can collaborate with Anglo, we should be doing that. And moving to the external environmental stakeholder perspective, it's very critical that the triple P is enhanced in terms of private-public sector partnership, because for our strategic objectives to be realized, we should be aligned with the government policies. If we say we are definitely going for exploration, we should be putting our resources to make sure that we make that happen. And finally, in terms of the governance structure, if you look at the holistic view of what governs us, our board performance, our way of doing things. We should be in a uniform way. And the face of mining has changed. It's a new world altogether. But I'd like to pause there, Sandile. We'll dwell later on all the issues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Patricia, for those key opening remarks and quite a good deep dive into ESG and some of the requirements. I think in your talk, you mentioned some of the challenges that school-going children would have and accessing that. I think it's quite a good segue into considering our third topic around energy transition, because as we know, no industry or sector remains untouched by the energy transition requirements. This includes a move towards more decarbonization, with reports stating that renewable energy is one of the fastest growing energy resources. Energy standards have changed and companies need to respond accordingly. But more importantly, mining is no exception, and the challenge is arguably even greater, given that the sector is one of the most intensive energy users in the world of energy. With that background, Natasha, you want to give us a sense around energy transition and what it means to the mining sector?
Thank you, Sandile, and good afternoon to all the participants. I think it would probably be the right place to start is to just reflect on the contribution that mining has made to South Africa and the infrastructure that we see around us today, and that we have all the resources that we need to continue to support the infrastructure development and also supporting the recovery plan the economic recovery plan that's been announced. I think if we think about the energy transition, there are a couple of opportunities. I'm sure Fortune will talk to us about battery minerals a little bit later. Batteries play a big important role, but as does hydrogen. Now, if we consider that the platinum group minerals and platinum specifically, play a very important role in the hydrogen economy, and we further consider that 70% of the world's resources are the PGM resources is in South Africa, I think it's a really big opportunity for us for further development in the country. We think about clean mobility. We think about the fact that 65% of our mineral already is used in autocats for cleaner air, and then also through green hydrogen, we can play a very important role in carbon neutrality. I think it's further important to just recognize that we need to continuously balance our value creation as we are stewards of the resource that we are mining, and balancing between how we create value and returns for our shareholders and value generation for the host communities that we operate in. And for that reason, and because we are stewards of these resources, we also have an accountability to reduce our resource use intensity, as Sandile has just mentioned. So not only can this play a big role in our own reduction of energy intensity, it will also play a role in the development and investment opportunities in our country. If we then further consider how we reduce the intensity of the mining industry, I think technology plays a very big role. Technology development further creates opportunity for investment, but it also creates opportunity to make the mining industry an attractive place for work so that we can continue to attract the best talent. And I think lastly, important to recognize that no one industry can do it by ourselves. We've spoken about, both the Minister and Roger has mentioned COVID as an opportunity. I think equally how we collaborate across mining sectors. Patricia has mentioned working together in the mining industry, working together with government, and we've seen that continuous collaboration with labour and civil society in this period of time. And I think all of these factors give us a further opportunity to continue that collaborative relationships.
Thank you, Natasha. And I think collaboration is very good and very important between mine sector and all that. And I think staying with the energy transition theme, so energy transition, is it an opportunity or threat to mining? Fortune, you want to give us your take on that?
Thank you very much, Sandile, and good afternoon to all the participants. The energy transition presents a great opportunity for mining specifically. Consider the following. In 1980, only 10% of the total share of energy consumption in the world was in the form of electricity. Today, it's 20%. By 2050, it's expected to be about 45%. You have this massive shift towards electricity and the way in which we consume electricity. I think if you look at the electric vehicle momentum, you can see easily why such a shift is happening. The shift is happening at a time where also we're seeing a growing penetration of renewable energy in the energy generation mix. Now, this is particularly important because in this setup, energy storage will play a significant role. And this is both in terms of mobility and in terms of stationary energy storage. According to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, they estimate that the total deployed stationary energy storage systems deployed globally will grow from about 17 gigawatt hours in 2018 to about 2,450 gigawatt hours by 2040. That's a 122-fold increase. If you include mobility into that, you double that number. What does that mean for battery metals specifically? It's a great implications for South Africa, because we happen to be well endowed with quite a number of large battery metals, whether it's vanadium or nickel or platinum group metals. South Africa is ranked, or manganese. South Africa is ranked as one of the top, second or third ranked in terms of global resources or reserves that it has in respect of this. I think the opportunity, therefore, is unquestioned. The real question for us is how do we capture this opportunity as the mining industry? And I would venture to say that it is not only about increasing our supply into this space. In the case of vanadium, for example, just a mere 10% penetration of vanadium redox flow batteries in the stationary energy storage space will require global vanadium production to grow by about 50%. Where does that vanadium come from? We happen in South Africa to have quite a lot of that vanadium. And the issue is not the resource base. We've got the resource base. I think the bigger challenge for us we need to think about is how do we increase of the value chain, particularly within the battery metals? How do we ensure that this energy transition benefits us not only from a supply of resources point of view, but that we can actually capture that value chain? And I think the key enablers that are well within our